Hey, thanks for being here. I'm Serena Wells, and I'm here to tell you about the Power by Her community, because it's so much more than a podcast. We have monthly lunches full of encouragement and inspiration, quarterly events focused on celebrating women in our community and sharpening our entrepreneurial skills. In early 2022, we're launching our very first annual Women's Business Conference, where we will be bringing you amazing guest speakers and offering some breakout sessions that will help us improve our businesses. We want you to partner with us and join the community. And the best way to do that is to head over to join.powerbyhercommunity.com and become a supporter of the community. You can support us for as little as $1 a month, but if you jump in at a higher level, there'll be extra opportunities and experiences you'll get. Take a minute right now and head over to join.poweredbyhercommunity.com. Now Tiffany is going to interview another smart, strong entrepreneurial woman in our community. Thanks for being a part of what we're doing to bring inspiration and community to professional women.
Welcome back to Power by Her. I'm Tiffany Anton from the Biz Foundry, and I have Lindsey Cox in today, CEO of the Company Lab or the Co-Lab in Chattanooga.
Yeah.
Thank you for being here today.
Thanks so much for having me.
So this is kind of like a homecoming for you.
Yes, very much so.
You're an Upper Cumberland girl at heart.
Yes.
And so you grew up in this area.
Yes. So my family is from Livingston, Tennessee, and my great grandparents. So spent my summers growing up in Livingston around Dale Hollow Lake, and then moved to Cookeville in high school. So graduated from Cookeville High School, and then stayed for Tennessee Tech. So
and you went here for undergrad and master's?
Yeah, undergrad, and then did my MBA at Tech, which was fantastic, and did a little reminiscing about grad school days earlier, which was also really nice. So it does kind of feel like coming home and getting to walk around like the town square and downtown and Biz Foundry, and just to see everything that's been going on here is so fantastic.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So the Co-Lab is kind of a sister partner of the Biz Foundries.
Yeah, absolutely. So we're kind of like Chattanooga's version of Biz Foundry. And as folks may or may not know, I came prior to my role at Co-Lab was with an organization called LaunchTN, which is a statewide umbrella for innovation and entrepreneurship organizations. And so had a prior relationship with the Biz Foundry from that, and also a prior relationship with Co-Lab. So I'm really excited to have moved from kind of that statewide role to more of a community-focused role in Chattanooga.
So from Tennessee Tech, you worked for the state for a little bit, and that kind of got your feet wet into the real world, I guess.
I did a few year stint at the comptroller for the state of Tennessee in the Office of Bond Finance, so very sexy, of course. And then was able to transition over to LaunchTN, where I really just fell in love with economic development, and specifically with tech-based economic development and economic development as, innovation and entrepreneurship as that creation mechanism.
So let's look at a little bit of the LaunchTN. I don't think a lot of people in the Upper Cumberland know what LaunchTN is.
Sure. Realize
that a lot of the opportunities that the Biz Foundry is able to provide are because of LaunchTN. So how would you describe what LaunchTN is?
Yeah, I love to get to do the big overview of economic development. So LaunchTN is almost like the state's arm for tech-based, for entrepreneurship-based economic development. So rather than live at state ECD, economic and community development, which folks may be familiar with, LaunchTN kind of exists outside that as a public-private partnership to kind of act on the state's behalf to fund and implement and do really cool things around innovation and entrepreneurship. And one of those things that LaunchTN is charged with doing is to help fund and manage, set goals, work together, create a network with entrepreneurship centers around the state. And so Biz Foundry is one of those, and Co-Lab is one of those. And
there's seven of them now. And, Tri-Cities, Tennessee has just kind of opened over the last year.
Yeah.
And so then that's another partner that we've been able to work with and kind of come in. One of the great things with that is that we can kind of use our resources together. So the Upper Cumberland, growing up here, you know, it's pretty remote. There, you know, Livingston's even more so than in Cookeville, and driving up from Chattanooga, you drove through the speed trap of Spencer.
Yes.
You know, and so Spencer doesn't have the resources necessarily that even Cookeville does, and Cookeville doesn't have the resources that Chattanooga does. And so how do you think that the statewide system has really kind of worked for us?
Well, I think you can leverage it for a few things. You can leverage it for mentors in particular, which I think is really helpful just in terms of resource sharing, right? So if we get somebody in the door in Chattanooga that we're not quite sure how to help, we can reach out to y'all and see if you guys have somebody in your network that might be better connected or better able to assist them. But I also think it helps in terms of piloting programs, right? If we have a little more resources, maybe we can try something out and say, hey, this is actually really effective. We should think about implementing here, and how could we go about doing that at all the entrepreneurship centers around the state, or whoever it might be viable for. So I know those things have been really, in my opinion, have come in really handy as just learning opportunities that we can all kind of share and grow, rather than us all having to kind of forge our own path and then be like, oh, no, you know, this thing didn't work. And it just helps you learn the lessons a little bit faster.
Yeah. So you made the choice a few years ago to leave Launch Tennessee, and you went to D.C.
Yeah.
From Nashville to D.C., and you lived in D.C. through the pandemic. And so what was the choice to come back to Tennessee?
Yeah, so I had left Launch Tennessee. I had been recruited to the Department of Commerce, to the Federal Office of Innovation and Entrepreneurship, which for me was really cool. You know, I
a huge jump in your career, I'm
huge
sure.
jump in my career, and I felt really invested at that point that my path was economic development, and specifically economic development around innovation and entrepreneurship as a job creation tool. So I was like, I'm going to go to DC, and I'm going to learn what the Launch Tennessees, what the Biz Foundries, what the co-labs all over the country are doing, and I'm going to take those best practices back to Tennessee eventually. That was kind of the plan. So I did get to do that. I got to do that for about 20 months. But the role at the company lab opened up, and so it was just too good an opportunity to make our way back to Tennessee. And my husband Joe and I had always said, if we moved back to Tennessee, it would be really cool to try somewhere other than Nashville, maybe Chattanooga. And so it felt very fateful that CEO role would come open, and I would be in a position.
So you kind of have a national look at things, and a Tennessee. I have never worked in entrepreneurship or economic development anywhere else besides the state of Tennessee. But I will ask people, well, what's a Launch Tennessee? What do they have in North Carolina?
Yeah.
And I maybe I'm just a little biased, but I feel like Tennessee has something that not very many other places have.
Yeah, it was actually really great and life affirming to go to DC and be like, oh wait, we're actually doing this really, really well in Tennessee. I mean, there are always like lessons you can take, or just cool things you see, specifically in terms of like maker spaces, or what other states are doing in the capital space, or around angel investing. Like I think those lessons kind of resonated with me. But what we are doing here in Tennessee is very impressive and has been a model for a lot of other states. So I think we're pretty advanced. I mean, because Launch Tennessee has been around now for several years. You know, it grew out of the Haslam administration. So, you know, not all states have kind of gotten on board yet with how transformative this work can be.
Yeah. So you've been back in Chattanooga now for how?
10 weeks.
10
this
weeks.
is week 10.
So
yeah.
a couple months now.
Yeah.
Where do you think Lindsey at 10 years old, what was her goal, her vision? Did she want to be a CEO? Was she bossy?
Yeah.
Was she want to be a leader kind of thing?
Probably. Yeah. No, I think I've always been extremely chatty and extremely curious. So I'm one of those people that I love to know everything I can know. And sometimes to the point where I think folks are like, wait, why are you asking me so many questions? And it doesn't come from a place of, you know, wanting to like exploit the information or anything like that. It's because I'm so genuinely curious, and have kind of treated my career like that. So my undergrad's in accounting. I have an MBA. I started at Launch in finance. I moved into more innovation programming, and then moved into a government relations role because I just kept learning a little bit about stuff and being like, this is so great. And I think that's the right way to develop talent too, to just let it kind of find what it's good at and then double down. And so, you know, it eventually got at Launch Tennessee to where I was had kind of started the government relations department there through a grant from Kauffman Foundation, which is very generous of them, and then was also leading operations, and then was also running 3686, the technology conference, which I just developed, kind of a weird knack and love for doing. But yeah, I think 10-year-old Lindsey would be very happy that I get to do so much.
Shameless plug for 3686.
Yes.
Lindsey and I will both be there.
Yes, we'll be there.
And that's coming up in September,
Yes.
the 21st through the 24th. And
Yeah.
tickets are still available, so people can check out that.
Yeah, I'm so glad that that conference is... I led it in 2018 and 2019, and so 2020 it was virtual. I'm so excited it's going to be back in person in 2021.
And the thing that I love is that you are in downtown Nashville on Broadway. You're with your other entrepreneurs. It's just this exciting atmosphere. Yeah. How do you think your role is going to change now from being a CEO of the collab instead of at launch
and a statewide role?
It'll probably be a lot more relaxing at 3686.
I think it'll be much more relaxing for me at 3686. Although I tend to get very, I love to be in the thick of things. So sometimes it's hard for me to relax. Like even a vacation, I can't go to the beach because I can't sit. I have to go to a city and walk.
Yeah.
But no, I think it'll be great. And it has been interesting going from a statewide role or a nationwide role into more of a community role where you're beholden to that community, and that that inspires me every single day to just do the best I can on behalf of all the folks in the greater Chattanooga region. So
how do you think? So you have there was a male in the CEO role before you. How do you think that is going to change, or what do you strive to kind of change the layout of being a female in the leadership role there?
Yeah, I'm so excited to be the first female CEO of Collab. I think it is going to help just in terms of having that representation with the companies that we're even meeting with, because I think we've all experienced this as women, or women in business, women in small business, women in entrepreneurship. When there's another woman in the room, it feels different, and it just feels a little more comfortable. And I think specifically from a capital perspective too, as we think about funding for our companies, knowing that there's a female CEO at Collab, and that maybe that is going to attract some more diverse capital in as well, will be an impactful avenue.
That's awesome. I'm really excited to kind of see how you can advocate for the women of your community, and just in a different way. And I don't think, I think that there is, like you said, a lot of those times you go into these investor meetings and there's one female or two females in the room. And so it's nice to have another one at the table.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
So what do you see your role? I mean, you've had a lot of changes in the past 10 years. What do you see in the next 5 to 10 years?
Yeah. So I'm in the process of getting a new strategic plan approved for Collab. We're going through that process right now with our board, and I really am just looking forward to executing on that. We've laid out some big goals and some, ambitious things we want to accomplish, and also formalized a little bit more of who Collab is in the kind of space. We have a lot of other organizations in Chattanooga, which is fantastic. We get to work hand in hand with such great partners, but we want to make sure we're articulating what our value is and what our value proposition is, and how we can help entrepreneurs. And so I think over the next 5 years, we're going to be doing a pretty kick-ass job at that.
I think it's very interesting. You are doing, figuring out your value proposition. You're doing what you tell all your entrepreneurs to do. And so, sometimes, as Jeff Brown says, you eat your own dog food, so.
Yes, I'm living and breathing the entrepreneurial experience right now.
Which is awesome. I love the fact that you have these goals. One of the things that you have coming up is Startup Week.
Yeah.
So tell me and this is the first time that you're in this capacity.
Yeah. I'm so excited. So, Collab is really the steward of Startup Week on behalf of the city, but it is truly a community-wide event. And what's different for me is coming from a background with 3686, where I kind of curated every single piece of content, or all the vendors we worked with and all the speakers we had. In this role, Collab curates a handful of pieces, a lot of our main stage programming, but then we source events from the community, and anyone can really apply and say, hey, this is what I want to contribute to Startup Week. I want to do a panel or a workshop or a keynote, and we are just the stewards of that. We get to put it all on the schedule, arrange it in pieces that make sense, help them coordinate venues, help them find a great audience, help market it to the masses. But I think it is just a little bit more and a little bit different. So I'm really excited that this will be my first year, leading the team that gets to execute on such a meaningful event for the community.
So is Startup Week open to, anybody? Can people find?
Yeah. So we'll be making a big announcement soon, just in terms of like website and schedule and date. All that will be happening over the next several months. But the dates are October 18th through the 21st. It is in downtown Chattanooga,
which is like the coolest place ever.
Which is very cool.
And for us, it's just a straight shot down 111. It's such an easy drive and beautiful drive.
Yes.
I love Chattanooga.
Yes, and I think the past several years we've had upwards of 60 different events as part of that week. So when I say there's something for everybody, there's truly something for everybody. So it is a great time to be in the city, and it's a great time to just take advantage of that like buzz and the networking and also the great content.
Yeah. What would you say to women who are kind of in their careers and they're not really sure? They know they have some passion, but they don't really know. They don't necessarily feel like they're qualified. I think your journey through Launch Tennessee really shaped who you are. And what advice would you give them to form a career path?
Sure. Yeah. So my advice is if a role doesn't feel quite right, see if you can pick up a little bit of something else if you're happy with your current organization, to see if that's a better fit and kind of feel your way to what feels best for you. But also, I think it was really impactful for me when I got an official mentor. And I say official mentor because I think we all have those people in our lives that we come to for advice and that we feel that mentor relationship with, but you haven't necessarily said, hey, will you be my mentor? And I did that. There was a woman who I really admired who was in a CEO position, and we had great conversation and camaraderie, but we didn't have that type of relationship. And I made a formal ask, and I had gotten that advice from somebody. They said, make a formal ask them for an hour a month to do lunch and talk about XYZ and like spell out why you value their time and how you're going to make the most of it. And I did that, and she is still one of my mentors to this day, but we are incredibly close. But it was just so empowering. And I also think she was very excited when I reached out and said, hey, I really admire what you're doing, and I think I could learn a lot. And I think sometimes it feels, I kind of flash back on that, and I remember feeling so nervous to make that formal connection. Yes. Yeah. And now I'm like, oh, this is what everybody should do.
Yeah. So now that you're on the flip side of that, how, what does that look like for the team that you manage, or
I'm also really lucky in that I got to develop a lot of really good management habits from my first CEO at Launch Tennessee, Charlie Brock, who is very well known in the Chattanooga community. So it's also nice that I'm in Chattanooga now, and he and I get to spend time together in that mentor-mentee relationship. But just good management habits, like having 30-minute one-on-ones with, everyone on your team during the week, like having that kind of open door for communication, like investing not just in people's professional growth, but their personal growth, thinking about that in terms of how you do annual reviews, like catalytic coaching, like it should be a shared process. So I feel fortunate to have picked that up. I hope the team at CoLab is enjoying the implementation of that.
So how, if people want to find you or the CoLab, the company lab, how can they find you guys?
So our website is just colab.co. Very, very easy for folks to remember. Our Instagram is at the company lab, and then and I'm on Instagram as well, public facing at LC in the CHA. It used to be LC in the DC, and it rhymes. Yes. So then I got to figure that out eventually. Yeah. And then my email is just lindsey@colab.co.
And it's a S-E-Y.
S-E-Y.
There you go. See ya.
Yeah. Got it.
So if you guys want to check out the CoLab, if you're down in Chattanooga, definitely check out Startup Week for all of our starters and movers and shakers. I feel like being around, just surrounding yourself with that community is inspiring.
Yeah, thanks.
And so I love what you guys have going on down there.
Thanks so much.
So thank you so much for being on today, and we'll see you later.
Yeah, thank you.
Confetti, coffee, and community. Need I say more? I am so excited to be celebrating my dear friend, empowered by her previous guest, Amber Zardcourt, and launching her second Fill Your Cup conference. A one-day conference for passionate, career-driven women to pause, pour into yourself, and begin overflowing in every aspect of your life. This year hosted at the Monarch in Baxter, Tennessee on September 20th, 2021. It's going to be such a life-giving event. Use our promo code PBH10 to grab your ticket today.